what you would have for us and to teach us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Okay, we are in the book of Acts. We've been in the book of book of Acts forever. And my clicker is not working. It is working. There we go. Okay, yep. We've been through this 100 times. And it's always, repetition is your friend. I've always told when I was in teacher school. You keep repeating the same thing, kids are eventually going to get it. So we know the order of events. We know that on Palm Sunday, Christ enters Jerusalem as a hero. And then by that Thursday, they're having the Last Supper, celebrating Passover. And then after the Passover meal, they go to Gethsemane, and they're arrested. He's arrested, betrayed, and arrested. He's put on trial. And then from there, he is turned over to Pilate, and Pilate has him crucified at Golgotha. And then he is buried in a known tomb. And then on Sunday, you have, of course, the resurrection, signifying victory over death. 40 days on the earth, he's seen by over 500 people, to include all of the disciples. He ascends into heaven on the Mount of Olives. And then 10 days after that, you have Pentecost. And this is where the Holy Spirit's poured out on the disciples, speaking in tongues. Then you start having the significant events in the book of Acts itself. The healing of the lame man, Peter and John being arrested for that, Stephen being martyred, Philip in Samaria and in Gaza with the Ethiopian. One of the most significant events in all of Christianity is the conversion of Paul. And then you have Peter's vision, doing away with the Levitical laws, or not doing away with them, but God superseding them. Let's put it that way. And then you have the dispute over the Gentiles. Are Gentiles able to become Christians without first becoming Jews? And then Peter is delivered from prison. Then we have the missionary journeys. This is the majority of the book of Acts. Paul and Barnabas on the first missionary journey, the completion of that in Crete. Then you have the Jerusalem Council, where they talked about the requirements. Do new believers have to be circumcised? Was the main one. Paul and Barnabas split before going on the second missionary journey. Timothy joins Paul along with Luke during the second missionary journey to spend the majority of time in Corinth. You have Christianity reaching Europe in Lydia's house. Then Paul goes to Athens, or he goes from, he goes to Thessalonica, and then he goes to Thessalonica, then he goes to, was it Berea? I think it was Berea. And then he goes to Athens, and then from Athens, that's Acts 17, from Athens he goes to Corinth, and he's in Corinth for a year and a half with Priscilla and Aquila, and then he goes back to Ephesus and then back to Jerusalem, ending the second missionary journey. And now he's on his third missionary journey, and this is the one that we've been talking about, where he goes back to Ephesus, and he's going to be in Ephesus for 2 years, and he's preaching in a temple. And where we left off is there's been a big crowd gathering, because when he preaches the God of the Bible, the main god in Ephesus at this time is Artemis, and you have this big temple built for Artemis, and it generates a lot of income for people, because people come in and they buy like little trinkets, to little shrines, little things, jewelry to wear. And now the people are turning away from that. Why? Because of what Paul is preaching. He's saying this is idolatry. You guys are, you're worshiping a rock. You shouldn't be doing these things. So you have this riot started, and here's where we left off in verse 25. These he gathered together with the workmen in a similar trades, and said, "Men, you know that this business we have our wealth." So you have one of the head guys that's in charge of, like, let's say the union, And he's trying to rile people up to keep Paul from continuing to preach the gospel message, which would minimize or marginalize their business. So this is an organized effort. That's not spontaneous. This is an organized effort to keep this gospel message suppressed. And he's doing it to an audience whose lives or livelihood depends on Artemis, people coming into Ephesus, to worship the goddess Artemis. All right, so let's go to verse 26. And you see and hear that not only in Ephesus, but in almost all of Asia, this Paul has persuaded and turned away a great many people, saying that gods made with hands are not gods. So he's calling it as it is. He says, you got this guy Paul, he's coming here in all of Asia Minor, Asia, which is modern-day Turkey. He's saying he's turning away people away from our Roman pantheon of gods that we worship. So here, the guy's name is Demetrius. This Paul, he refers to him in kind of in a mocking way, and he's acknowledging how effective Paul has been in getting people to turn away from this pagan, this idolatry this polytheistic idolatry that's going on there. And look at this. Gods. He even quotes Paul. He says, "Gods made." This Paul has persuaded him and turned him into God, because Paul is saying what? Gods made with hands are not gods. So if you make a god, an image, and you worship that image, we call that idolatry. And Paul is calling it out. He's saying, look, this rock this statue that you carved is no more a god than, the pebble that's stuck to the bottom of my shoe. The difference is that one makes them money and the other one doesn't. So they're upset with Paul. I hate this thing. Okay, verse 27. And there is a danger not only that this trade of ours may come into disrepute, but also that the temple of the great goddess Artemis may be counted as nothing, and that she may even be deposed from her magnificence, she whom all Asia in the world worship. So look at the plateau he's putting Artemis on here. I got to do something about this. I've just had it. And I say it every week. I know I do. I'm sorry. What? It's not the batteries. It's just the range. Okay, so he even admits this is not a theological issue. He's not talking about, well, this is the difference between, our beliefs in Artemis and what Paul is preaching about this God in Jesus Christ. He's saying that this is about money. This is about our wealth. And look what he does. He elevates Artemis as being a goddess that is worshipped worldwide. And this worldwide would be the world as they know it, the Roman Empire itself. They have no idea what they worshipped in India at this time, or what they worshipped in China, or what they worshipped down in, Western Africa, but what they know in the Roman Empire. Verse 28. And when they heard this, they were enraged and were crying out, "Great is Artemis of the Ephesians." So this is kind of like a chant that they go through. Enraged. The Greek term here is a medical term, and it means like they're. You guys ever see the movie? It's got zombies, Brad Pitt. World War Z. There you go. World War Z. You ever see that movie? You watch Harry Potter and you're not watching World War Z? Have you seen that World War Z, Joseph? You ever see? You guys got to watch this. This is a really good. It's like when we talk about the zombie apocalypse, this is literally the zombie apocalypse. And this isn't zombies walking around going, "Ugh." These guys sprint after you at superhuman speed and bite your neck out and then turn you into a zombie. You need to watch it. It's quality entertainment. But anyway, guys, they're like in a convulsive fit because they can't control themselves. Like these zombies are walking around twitching all the time. This is what I'm great is Artemis, the goddess of the, of the Ephesians. This is what I am envisioning here. But when we talk about a convulsive fit, when people go into convulsions, they do a lot of convulsing, and this is how it's actually written here. And he not only is challenging their religious point of view, but he's also challenging their economic pride. He's saying, look, this thing that you're worshiping here, I get it. A lot of you are making money off of it, but you're a bunch of pagans. Sorry about that. And then notice it says crying out, crying. Again, as I said, this is a chant, a liturgical chant. When we sing or when we say, recite our creeds, for example, if you the Apostles' Creed, I believe in God the Father Almighty. Okay, this is kind of the same thing. Great is Artemis of the Ephesians. This would be the same thing. So you have this battle cry going out, kind of like to enrage the people to defend Artemis so they can defend their economic prosperity. Okay, verse 29. So the city was filled with confusion, and they rushed together into the theater, dragging with them Gaius and Aristarchus, Macedonians, who were Paul's companions in travel. So you have a escalation from a protest to somebody preaching to them to now it's turning into a riot, is what this is turning into. Is that they filled with confusion, they don't know what's going on, and this is basically what a riot is. You have a lot of people going out there saying different things, acting out violently for different things. So you have this escalation, and they go into this theater, which holds about 25,000 people, where Paul had been preaching for all this time, and they drag two of Paul's buddies out, and they're going to kill them. So confusion is disorder, and again, this is kind of like a demonic frenzy against the gospel message. And so they stampede in this theater, and this is where most of your governmental type activities occur. They're following this Greek pattern of, you have a public meeting where people talk about things that, in order to, it's like your citizenship thing where you, like a city council is what's going on here, or where they meet. And they talk about what they need to do for the city. Well, this building is what they use in order to do that. Now, Paul has been using this building also as a place to preach the gospel message. So what they're going to do is they're going to lynch these two guys on the spot. And again, this is kind of what we would say like a proxy attack on Paul. Instead of attacking Paul personally, they're attacking his friends. But when Paul wished to go in among the crowd, the disciples, they wouldn't let him. Paul being the brave guy that he is, he's, I'll go in and I'll save them, let me go. Well, things haven't really worked out with Paul before. I mean, we look at his instinctive boldness here, where he, instinctively wants to protect those around him, but and this is him not only defending them, but it's also the gospel message himself. And when we look at, can somebody pull up 14, that verse, and somebody else, Acts 16, and the reason why they don't want Paul to go in there is because of what has transpired with him before. Who's got 14, verses 19 through 20? Okay, so what did they do to Paul? They still didn't work out for him because they thought they thought he was dead. That's how bad they stoned him. So we get to chapter 16, verses 22 and 23. Okay, so you have when it says, notice it says, when Paul wished to go in among the crowds, the disciples would not let him. Why aren't they going to let him? Because, yeah, they're like, Paul, you got a track record here, brother. Every time that you start sticking your nose in situations like this, it does not end well for you. In one instance, he gets stoned half to death. In the other instance, what is happening to him? He's getting beaten half to death with rods. So they said, Paul, stop. You're not going. So what was that last thing there? So, and Paul, he even admits that this is probably a good idea. Maybe I shouldn't go in there and get a beat down this time. So he's being a little prudent. And that is in 1 Corinthians. Can somebody go to 1 Corinthians? Sorry. 1 Corinthians 13:15 or 13:5. What does that say? Maybe that was number 4. Maybe I got that wrong. 1 Corinthians. Oh. That was 13:5. 1 Corinthians, not second. Okay, I got it wrong then. Okay, so but in the 1 Corinthians, I must have got the verse chapter wrong, where he admits that it was a good idea that you did not allow me to go into this crowd while we were in Ephesus. Okay, verse 31, and even some of the Asharts, who were friends of his, sent to him and were urging him not to venture into the theater. So Paul is outside of the theater. This is all going on inside of the theater. Now, when we think of the theater, we think of kind of like a mini version of the Roman Colosseum, but kind of in a half-moon shape, I guess you could say. Now, Asharts, these are Roman aristocrats. They have Roman citizenship. They have money. They come from wealth, and they have some stature within the city. And people tend to listen to them because they're men of power, and they are the ones who manage the theater in which Paul is preaching from. So these are the guys that run the show basically there in Ephesus. And Paul evidently had befriended these guys while he was preaching in Ephesus. You know, if you run the joint, you can't help but eventually listen to what this guy is preaching on a daily basis. But again, these guys are in Ephesus, and the main form of income in Ephesus at this time is what? Artemis. This is, I mean, her temple, if we saw a picture of this temple and how absolutely beautiful this temple was, people flocked to this place from all over. It says the whole world. I'm not saying the whole world, but from all over the place just to see it. But it illustrates how fragile idolatry is if it needs to be protected by a rock. Verse 32, and now some cried out one thing, some another, for the assembly was in confusion, and most of them did not know why they had come together. So this protest, it swells into the city. You have this citywide riot, and a lot of people don't even know what the origins of the riot are. The only thing they know is let's go kill, it's like Minneapolis, like, let's go kill somebody. We don't know that we're protesting, but we know it's bad. It must be Nazis or ICE, I don't know, who knows. So people probably just showing up to get caught up in the crowd, and they're just following what others are doing. But the thing that happens here is the Roman authority, the Roman procurators, the people that are in charge of this region, do not take kindly to this type of behavior. Why? Because if they cannot they're sent there to keep the peace. And if you have a riot going on, is that keeping the peace? No. So you can lose your job, you can be thrown into prison, and worse, you can be killed for not doing your duty to Rome, being harsh on these people. Verse 33, some of the crowd prompted Alexander, whom the Jews had put forward, and Alexander, motioning with his hand, wanted to make a defense to the crowd. Okay, so this Alexander is being voluntold to speak for the Jews. He says, Alexander, get out there. Say something, for Pete's sake. So Alexander's out there. Okay, people, listen to me. And he's the spokesman who tries to clarify their relationship with Paul, because he doesn't want the Jews, because the Jews are, every time they go out there, getting persecuted somewhere. So he's going to defend the Jews from the mob. That's who they put out there. Okay, so verse 34. But when they recognized that he was a Jew, for about 2 hours, now listen, for 2 hours they cried out with one voice, "Great is Artemis of the Ephesians." So they continue, the crowd is continuing for 2 hours. Great is Artemis of the Ephesians. Great is Artemis of the Ephesians. And he's trying to talk to them. They're saying, no, great is Artemis of the Ephesians. So they're not listening to what he has to say. So he's rejected by the mob once they recognize that he is a Jew. Now, when we think of Paul, Paul had been preaching here for 2 years now, and this and his message that he had been preaching has been affirmed by the many miracles that he had performed in Ephesus. But the people, they're still crying out, despite the fact that they have seen, heard proof of the message that he is spreading. They're still crying out to this false god. So we get to 35. And when the town clerk had quieted the crowd, he said, "Men of Ephesus, who is there who does not know that the city of the Ephesians is a temple keeper of the great Artemis, and of the sacred stone that fell from the sky?" Okay, so yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself here. So he's trying to control this crowd, despite the fact that they're chanting for 2 hours, "Great is Artemis of Ephesus," or "Ephesus is Artemis," whatever they're chanting. And he's appealing to their patriotism to try to restore order. Now, when you look at it, it says, she came from this rock that they're worshiping is a meteorite. And this is, and I had to do it. This is the first thing that came to mind last night when I was going through this verse was, if they're worshiping a meteorite, where else do we see people worshiping a meteorite? Well, if you go into this corner, I think it's this corner, right? Is it that corner? One of the corners of the Kaaba, they have the black stone. Have you heard about this black stone? And the belief is that since Muhammad kissed the black stone, that if you kiss the black stone, your sins will be forgiven. So you have the same thing, and a lot of us say, well, this old pagan religion, these people practicing paganism, worshiping a rock or whatever, they bow to this thing 5 times. They won't admit it, but they bow to this thing 5 times a day. This rock. And the rock is actually broken up into, I think, 8 or 9 different pieces now, because people have gotten a hold of it, trying to destroy Islam or whatever, and they've broken the rock up. And okay, seeing that these things cannot be denied, you ought to quiet and do nothing in rash. Okay, we're gonna leave it there, but that is so apropos. Anybody have anything they want to throw at this? Anything you want to say? Hi, Lainey. Is it Lainey? Well, she is looking. How old is she now? 6 months? 7 months? Oh, really?